Thank you very much indeed for joining us today at our annual Investor Day, and thank you very much for making the time to share with some of your investors in Spain.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Jochen, Harley-Davidson, I guess it's the most famous motorcycle company in the world, but it was also a company with, I guess, too, some clear problems when you took over back in 2020. What would you say was the single biggest structural or long-term problem that Harley had back then?
Well, first we had a really short-term problem, not knowing how long that short-term would become, and that's COVID. I took over when just before the COVID crisis hit and the pandemic started, so there was a lot of uncertainty. But as it is with uncertainty, it also shows you where your weaknesses are. And I learned very quickly that while the brand is an incredible brand, one of the most powerful brands in the world, it wasn't really structurally aligned to the challenges, and the strategy that the management had developed was just not focused enough to really find solutions and opportunities in the core areas where we had a strength. Instead, it was venturing off to try and find opportunities in areas we had relatively little experience. So in crisis, you focus on your strengths, you build on your strength, and you eliminate your weaknesses. And I didn't feel that the strategies had either of it.
And Jochen, you made your name with the turnaround of sports apparel company Puma. That's what you're famous, at least with investors, for having done. What did you take away from that experience that persuaded you that something similar could be done at Harley? And to be honest, what made you want to come back to the grind of a day-to-day frontline role?
Well, the one thing I learned at Puma is nothing is impossible, right? I mean, I started, the company was pretty much bankrupt on paper. We had a brand name and brand awareness, but no desirability around the brand. We had no manufacturing of high-end products or even mid-priced products. Much of it was still in Europe. We had a terrible brand image at the time and no really cool product. So there was very little to work with, and there's a big difference. Harley is an incredible brand. We have incredible product. We have riders that are deeply committed. It's a lifestyle. It's not just a product, and very few brands can say that. But when you're around for 119 years, you sometimes get a bit complacent too. And rather than saying, if there's a problem, it's my problem versus the market's problem. If you own the market, if you define the market, it's always your problem. And I think we've kind of lived on the past name and the reputation that we built without really innovating for the future.
And you felt that was a big enough opportunity to come back to 9 to 5
Well, that's
work.
a good question, but I had been on the board of the company, right? And you're a board member, there are certain things you do and you don't do. And you always think, oh, I would have done this very differently. But you have a voice in the room among many others. And I was one voice in the room, and you try and influence it, but you're not the CEO, you're not running it. You fly 30,000 feet high, and you're not in the trenches. And it was a crisis, and the board asked me, would you be willing to step in? And I said yes. So I just felt there was a crisis. I always look at crisis as an opportunity. And if it wasn't for Harley-Davidson, for this incredible brand, I definitely would not have done it.
Well, I think we're all pretty glad that you did. As we've established, you're a guy with a huge experience in apparel, and you say you see a huge opportunity for Harley in apparel. What do you mean?
Well, Harley-Davidson is not just a motorcycle brand. We live on the lifestyle that we've built over 119 years. Next year we celebrate our 120th year. It's a dedication that our customers have for our brand and for our product. That's a huge opportunity. Very few brands can actually say that. I mean, I could maybe count them on one hand. And that lifestyle opportunity of the spirit of the motor culture and everything that is built around that, and that freedom to ride and Americana, all of these things are an asset that allow you to actually sell beyond the motorcycle. And that's why part of our strategy is to actually focus on sales outside of bikes. And we have clear this customer segmentation that looks at those committed riders, but at the same time, the aficionados, the the dreamers, the adventure seekers that might not even ride today, but would like to associate themselves with the brand. And that starts with an apparel product. So that's an opportunity, because not everyone has to ride a Harley. If you are a fan, you can be a fan and associate yourself with the brand. And that's what a lifestyle brand is. It reaches out beyond its core consumer, gets out of the interest into the fold, whether that is by selling a t-shirt or one day selling a motorcycle. At the end of the day, that's a lifestyle opportunity that goes far beyond those who actually ride motorcycles.
Okay, so you're looking beyond motorcycles, but if we go back to the core, if we go back to motorcycles and think about that business for a minute, during your leadership, we've seen Harley do some very interesting things in terms of moving into new market spaces. Yeah, we've seen a very important, I think, launch for the company in the adventure trail segment. We've of course seen the launch of Harley's electric offering. How much do things like that expand the total available market opportunity for Harley in the long run, do you think?
Yeah, good question. I mean, first and foremost, you have to strengthen your core segments. Adventure touring, cruises, large cruises, that's a core, right? We have to defend, we have to build on that, we have to grow that segment. We are the dominant market leader. You can never show a weakness here. You have to lead and innovate and evolve as a company. That was the first focus, and that's what we call profit focus. Focus on your core segments where most of the profit is actually generated, where you have the most loyalty. But then you think, okay, what are focused areas that have, from a market perspective, an opportunity to be a future profit driver? And if you think about adventure touring, it's going off-road, but it's still touring. We are the leader in Grand American touring. Why shouldn't we be in off-road touring, as an example? In fact, when Harley Davidson started, there were no roads. It was replacing, motorcycles were replacing coaches and horses and different modes of transportation that were not run by an engine. So in a way, the history of the brand gives us the legitimacy to actually go off-road, because that's where we started. And that's a segment which is growing, profitable, and where we think we have, with the right product, an opportunity to expand the segment and grow the segment. So we are looking at the history and see what segments could make sense for us in terms of future opportunity to sell, but also generate income. And that Grand American touring is our focus area with cruising, but adventure touring is another area. And within 3 months, we were market leaders with a leading model in the United States, which is extraordinary. And we've expanded the market, grown the market. And that says clearly that this is within the DNA of Harley Davidson, and we can build a market that is not as significant as it is, for example, in Europe already.
And electric bikes, I guess it's a little harder to know how big that market opportunity is in the long run, no?
Well, electric bikes is a different story. Harley has made a commitment to be part of the electrification, but we believe that this market needs to be grown foremost and in the beginning with the urban consumer in different categories that Harley would consider core categories, and which is why I took the model name of Livewire, made it a standalone brand, standalone division, now standalone company and public company, because while Livewire is part of the lineage of Harley Davidson, it needs to have a different go-to-market process, a different agility, a different product aesthetic, a different customer, and it needs to really adventure into a market that in a way doesn't quite exist yet, but with the power and the backing of Harley Davidson. And so setting up a separate brand, independent brand that is part of the family, but has its ability to be agile in the market and develop the market in different segments with different consumers, that's the opportunity. That's why we decided to separate it.
It's fascinating. So it's clear that there's a lot going on at Harley at the moment. What's then your vision for where Harley could be in 5 years' time or 10 years' time? And what does Harley have to remember finally to have to keep generating value for all its stakeholders?
Well, our ambition is to be the most desirable motorcycle and lifestyle brand in the world. And I think within that, it makes it clear that we are deeply rooted in motor culture that defines us. But within that, we evolve and we innovate. And the brand is all about emotion. As Willie G. Davidson, who used to run our product styling and design, used to say, form follows functions, but both report to emotion. we are a truly aspirational, emotional, and desirable brand, and that's what we have to live and always remember. We are not just a product, and if we keep that in mind and then continue to innovate in the experiences that we provide for our consumers, different consumer groups, through our product and how we show up, and how we engage with our customer, I think then long term we can be very successful.
Jochen, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time today, and we wish you and everyone at Harley Davidson all the best in your efforts to get there. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.